Hey, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural and the very first episode of the Amazing Entrepreneurs Club podcast. I'm Sid Meadows, and I'm your host. And this first episode is going to be a little bit different. I've actually invited one of my friends to come into the show and actually be the guest interviewer and interview me, and to give you, the listener, the opportunity to get to know me a little bit and to hear my story. So I'm really excited to welcome to the episode today, Kerry Zarb. And Kerry is coming to us all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Kerry is a podcast marketing strategist and the host of two podcasts, one for fun and one for business. I'm going to let Kerry introduce herself, but I'm really glad that you're here joining us for this episode. So Kerry, take it away. And you got to promise to be nice to me.
I will be nice to you, Sid. I promise. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to be here. For anyone that doesn't know me, I am Kerry Zarb. I am a podcast marketing strategist from Melbourne, Australia, as Sid has said. I do have two podcasts and oh my God, they're just amazing. It's like podcast addict world over here. So yeah, super excited to be here and can't wait to get stuck into the interview.
Well, it's going to be fun. So Kerry, you have to tell them the name of your podcast and where they can find them so that the listeners can come check out your podcast as well.
That's a really good idea, Sid. I like that suggestion. Thank you for pushing me over the edge. Yes, so the first podcast I launched is called Biz Nation, and it is all about business, small business. It's help for young business owners, those that might be looking for some extra advice in their business. And in that show, I interview a variety of guests as well as some solo episodes. So that one's available on all the good podcatchers. And my second show is called Coffee with Kerry, and that one is just a bucket of fun. So it's a game show, it's an interview, it's just got lots of different rounds, and a lot of brave souls come on that show, and actually, you know, there's singing and there's dancing and there's all kinds of things going on. So yeah, that one fills my cup as well as the guests and hopefully those that are tuning in as well. And again, it's available on all the good podcatchers, but especially on YouTube because it's a video experience. And yeah, highly recommend anyone check out the YouTube channel. Just type in Coffee with Kerry and you'll find it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've had the opportunity to be a guest on your show, and it's really amazing. And it is a lot of fun. And I have to tell you, if you're listening, you got to go watch the YouTube version because it's really cool. It's so much fun to watch the YouTube version. So I had asked Kerry to come and interview me as a way to kick off the show. But Kerry, I think it's important before we dive into the interview itself is let's talk about how we met.
Oh, yes.
Because she's in Melbourne, Australia. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. And we actually met on this little app called Clubhouse, which is a lot of fun. And I joined Clubhouse in January of 2020. When did you join, Kerry?
My actual joining date was the 18th of January.
Okay.
So I think a couple of weeks.
Yeah, really close to each other. So, Kerry, what is it that you love about Clubhouse? Because I talked about it in the trailer episode as well. What is it you love about Clubhouse?
I think what it's done for me is it's made me realize that the world is actually quite small. And before that, like, you know, international connections and getting to know people overseas was, you know, not really done. Like through the podcast, I've met some amazing people and had some great guests on the show. But Clubhouse has opened me to so many areas of the world that I didn't know existed. Like I've become so familiar with the United States and all the different areas that you guys have now, and you know, often on Google Maps and exploring, you know, the landscape, which is super fun. And yeah, it's just, you know, like to be able to build a community and have a community of people that we can hang out with nearly every day that we know.
Much.
Yeah, and they're our friends now. You know, it's not just a case of some random person online that you come across and never interact with again. Like, you hang out nearly every day. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned earlier, or actually I mentioned in the trailer episode that we host rooms on Clubhouse. The Amazing Entrepreneurs Club has rooms on Clubhouse every day of the week, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. To all of you listening, we would love for you to come join us. And Kerry is one of the co-moderators of that room with me every day. And so it's 7 a.m. for me, but Kerry, it's like late in the evening for you.
Yeah, we had a bit of a flip recently, Sid. So we kicked in our daylight savings. So we went forward an hour. We were catching up in the Amazing Entrepreneurs Club on Clubhouse at, I think it was 10 p.m. my time, which is not too bad.
Right.
And yeah, now that's 11 p.m. But there's, just a couple of weeks until that time changes, and then we'll be back on normal schedule. So yeah, looking forward to that.
And we could actually have this entire podcast episode about Clubhouse because it is
Oh,
such
yeah.
a powerful tool. And you guys listening, those of you listening, are going to get to meet some amazing entrepreneurs that I've met on Clubhouse, because several of them will actually come in and either participate in the 10 to Win episodes, or they're going to be featured as a guest. Kerry will be featured as a guest later in the year as well. So you'll get to learn a lot more about her. But it is an amazing platform. It has made the world smaller. It has expanded our networks and made amazing business connections as well as personal connections, and led to really awesome friendships like I'm very fortunate to have with my friend Kerry sitting across the screen from me. So if you are watching on YouTube, you get to see Kerry in her studio, in the Coffee with Kerry studio. So you kind of get a glimpse of how fun it is. So Kerry, with that, I'm going to pass the mic to you and let's get started.
Sounds good. Let's go, Sid. So, Sid, please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do.
I would love to. So my name is Sid Meadows, and I'm a business strategist and high performance coach. And I work with entrepreneurs to help them build and grow their business. 5 years ago, I became an entrepreneur, and I realized really quickly how difficult and how lonely this journey can be. And over the course of the years, as my business has grown and changed and pivoted, I really started pivoting into a space that I really love, which is working with entrepreneurs and focusing on them and their growth, because it's their individual growth as well as the growth of their business that I think is super important. So that's what I do today. Like I said, I've been in business for a little over 5 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But Sid, what brought you to this, next chapter of your life? The last 5 years, there's no doubt been a huge amount of things go on. But what made you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I'd always had this longing to be an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. My brother is an entrepreneur. And I just always had this longing to want to do my own thing. But the reality of the situation is I was scared. I didn't really know what being an entrepreneur really meant, or the work that was involved in it. I had a really amazing corporate job, and I'd worked my entire life in the corporate world. In the most recent 10 years in corporate, I worked for one company. And so there was this fear about what the heck being an entrepreneur, what's that all about? But the catalyst for me was the last couple of years of my corporate life were really not good for me. And I was not in a good place. And at the end of the day, I was mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. I was traveling nonstop across the country. I would leave on a Sunday, come back on a Friday. I had two of everything. I always had a suitcase packed. And the reality is I have two children. They're both teenagers now, but I've been on the road for over 15 years, and the last 10, like a real-time road warrior. And when I say that, I would leave Dallas and I would go to Chicago, and then from Chicago, I'd go to LA, and from LA, I'd go to Phoenix, and then I'd come home. It wouldn't be like that. I just go to Chicago and spend the week in Chicago. I'd go to all these different places, and it was just really exhausting. And so it got to a point that I just knew that I could not take it anymore. My mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, couldn't take it. I was missing my kids growing up, missing my family, my wife, and I was missing all that. And so I quit. I literally, figuratively jumped off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
I resigned on a Friday, and though I think it was a bad decision, I told them it was a bad decision. My last day was on Monday. I was gone by noon on Monday. And so from there, I took a couple of months off to detox, to take care of myself, to get healthy, to sleep, and, to really be able to focus on me. And then I started looking at what it is I wanted to do, and which led me to this path today.
So, Sid, let's just go back for a second. So you quit. You didn't have a plan. You just knew this was no longer for you.
Correct.
But did you have in your mind at that time that you were going to start a business, or did you just quit to kind of get out and take a breath?
So great question. And I knew that I was going to do something for myself. I didn't know what it was going to be. I knew that after 30 plus years of working for other people, it was time for me to work for myself. And it was really time for me to focus on my freedoms, my personal freedom, my financial freedom, and my professional freedom. Because I'd never done that before. I was always focused on the success of other people and other companies. So I was making a lot of money. I was a senior vice president, and yeah, I was having a lot of fun. But by the same token, it was always about building someone else's wealth and building someone else's business. And it was time for me to build my business and for me to build my wealth and for me to really carve out the future for my family and not just keep working for someone else. So I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea what I was going to do though.
Interesting. So, Sid, when you think back to that time, do you have any regrets? Do you look back and go, what was I thinking? Why did I make that shift like I did? Or would you do anything different?
Hindsight is 2020. It always will be. But I would say I would do a lot of things differently, but jumping off and taking time for myself, I would not do differently. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I needed those 2 months for me to recover and for me to really get back into a place where I was sleeping at night, where I didn't wake up in the morning with knots in my stomach, where I didn't have anxiety, where I didn't have all that. And I needed to rest, right? I need to take care of me. And that's one of the things I've learned as being an entrepreneur is you got to take care of yourself. And so now the things that I would do differently is I would plan differently. I would focus on understanding who my customers are differently. I would really zone in on one or two services rather than starting with multiple services. And I would be very intentional about the path that I was going to walk. But as an entrepreneur, when you start, especially if you start messy, like I started, you don't necessarily, there's so much you don't know. And even today, 5 years later, I'm still learning things. And so, I would have just gone a little bit slower because once I announced what I was doing, we were off to the races. And so I would have slowed the process down a little bit and I would have done better planning with more intentionality about what I really wanted.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think definitely, take a breath and really think about where you want to go, where you want this business to go is definitely something that a lot of people probably fall into that trap. I did 100%, so I get it. But Sid, let's go fast forward the 5 years. What now makes you an amazing entrepreneur?
This is a question that I'm going to ask all my guests. And so I need to be prepared to answer it myself as well. So thanks for putting me on the hot seat, Kerry. That's what we call it, the hot seat. What I would say that makes me an entrepreneur is flexibility, meaning my ability to understand and pivot and change things in my business and realize what's working and what's not working and be able to pivot into a product or service that does work for my ideal customer or the target customer that I'm going after. So I think that flexibility. Another thing that I would say is I'm not afraid. I am not afraid to try things. And we could have a whole episode about all the things that I tried and that had miserable outcomes, but I'm not afraid to try them because each time I try something new or different, I learn. When I learn, I grow, and then I have the ability to make better decisions, smarter decisions for my business, and my business grows. So flexibility, and then I think that growth and learning and not having the fear. So that's actually three. So flexibility, I'm not afraid to try things. And then my intentionality of focusing on learning and growing. Because every day I want to learn something new so that I can grow, so that my business can grow. And you know me, so that's like way top of my list of things that are important to me.
Yeah, I love that, Sid. And I love all of that about you as well. I think you bring a lot to the table, but reality. Reality is, the truth that we need to discover within ourselves is so important that we are still learning. We will always be learning, and that's the beauty of the journey. Sometimes there's no destination as such. It is about the journey itself, right?
Absolutely. I truly believe that the term journey means just that. It's a journey. It's not a race. There's no finish line, but we are on a journey to grow our businesses, to grow personally. And that journey, hopefully we continue to grow, because I never want to stop growing. I never want to stop walking this path and finding joy in this journey, because there's a lot of joy to be found as being an entrepreneur. And it gives you a lot of things. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It gives you a lot of freedom. For me, one of the things it gave me was the ability to reconnect with my family and to be present for my family, especially now that my kids are, getting older. I actually got to be a dad again and go to events and go to games and go take them things to school that they left. And now that my daughter's in college, my daughter is an athlete. She plays collegiate soccer at a Division I school. And now I get to actually go and watch her play soccer. I get to block time on my calendar to go wherever their games are, because they play twice a week. I get to make sure that I can go do things with my son and at his school. And those are all gifts. That's the gifts of entrepreneurship that I did not have in my corporate life. I would have been on an airplane and watching her games on a phone or running in late to his football games. And so I got a lot of gifts in doing this, and that part I am so forever grateful for. And that this gave me that ability to do that and to be more present for my family.
That's amazing, Sid. And we've got to say, you can't get it back once it's gone. Like, those times are gone. You can't wind back the clock and do all those things again. So sounds like you picked the perfect time to become an entrepreneur.
I think so. I do think so. And people tell you all the time, especially parents, don't blink, because it's going to be gone in an instant. And I used to think, how's that possible? I mean, we got 20 something years with them. How's that possible? As a parent, I'm going to tell you, don't blink, because you're going to look up one day and you're going to go, wow, how did we go from being 3 to 13 and then to 20? And so it goes really, really fast. And I would encourage anybody listening to this, if you have children and you have a family, you got to prioritize them. They have to be at the top of your priority list, because you are going to look around one day and all of a sudden you're going to be empty nesting. Now, I'm going to say this. My wife and I are super excited about empty nesting. Get them out of the house. We're really excited about that part, because, we get to go back to doing some things that we really love doing that we did before we had kids. So I'm really excited about it, but don't blink, because they grow up really, really fast.
Definitely. Sid, we need to move into the next part of the show, which is the power of 3. So we have 3 questions, and you've gifted me these 3 questions. I appreciate the prompts so much. But the first question is, what has been your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
So the biggest challenge, and I know I face it, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs face it, is mindset. And always maintaining a positive mindset and a growth mindset. It's not easy. When bad things happen, we get in our own way. We get in our own head. It can come from an email, a phone call. It could come from having a conversation with someone, or, opening up your podcast downloads statistics and seeing that podcast tanked. There's so many things that affect our mindset, and keeping a positive one in a growth mindset is my single biggest challenge. It is still my single biggest challenge. And I think everybody listening is likely experienced that at some point, if not experiencing it right now. So how did I overcome it? And this is a great question. I came up with a framework. Coaches, we come up with frameworks. And so I came up with a framework, and because I don't believe that there's 2 parts of this. I don't believe that there's any such thing as failure. I really believe there's either you get the outcome that you needed or you wanted, you get the outcome that you wanted or the lesson that you needed. And so for me, there are 2 things. First off, it is absolutely okay to give yourself grace, to mourn or deal with whatever happened to you, whatever it is that happened to you. You lost the job, an employee quit, you sold the job and you lost money on it, whatever it is. And we all know there's all these things. So first off, give yourself grace to mourn that. But with that, ask yourself two questions. How low am I going to go? In other words, how low are you going to let it go? And how long am I going to stay there? Those are two very, very important questions. And because I see you smiling, Kerry, so I know probably what the next question is. So I'm going to go ahead and insert it. This happened to me in a really, really bad place. It was a couple of years into my business. I had an employee. We were doing really, really well. And we had spent months working on a pursuit. And because Kerry's heard this story, and I was really excited about it. All the indications were buy. We submitted our final proposal. We were really proud of it. And I don't know, a week after we submitted the final proposal, we got a Dear John email that said we decided not to proceed. And I remember like, what went wrong? What did we do wrong here? And what happened, I sent the guy an email and said, hey, we're a new business, we're a young business, and I would welcome your feedback as to why you decided not to move forward because it will help us grow. Ghosted me. And the next day, I'd gotten in my head so much about this. I literally, and I'm sure everybody listening can envision this, I was working in a co-working space. I literally closed the door and turned the lights off, and I laid on the floor on the verge of what I would call depression. And I stayed that way for 3 days. And then I would come home and I put on a happy face and, blah, blah, blah. But mentally, I was questioning everything. Why did I start a business? Why am I doing this? I'm not qualified to do this. I'm not capable to do this. And I was listening to a podcast. It was like the third day I was listening to a podcast. I don't even remember which one it was. And all of a sudden I realized, what the heck are you doing, dude? Get up and put your big boy pants on and shake this off and let's go. And because I was like avoiding phone calls and emails, you name it, I was checked out and laying on the floor. And that's when I found those two questions. That's when those two questions came up. And I realized that I needed to give myself grace. And then I needed to ask myself, give myself permission to mourn it, but how long? Put a time limit on it. Is it 2 hours? Is it 2 days? Whatever it works for you, you got to put the time limit on. So from that, then came the next exercise, the framework. And this is super easy. I'm going to actually put a PDF document together about this because I talk about this all the time. I need to do that. I ask myself 4 questions. And anytime something doesn't go the way that I want it to go, I don't get the result that I wanted. I ask myself what went right, because something always went right. So I have a little square, honestly. One of my clients calls this the leadership 4 square. And I have a little box, then I write down what went right because something went right. So I check it all off. Then I write down what went wrong. If I didn't get the result that I wanted, then something went wrong. So I write it down. And then the next question is, what did I learn? And I write down what I learned from the process so that I can answer the next question, which is, what am I going to do differently the next time? Because if we keep doing the same thing the same way, we're always going to get the same result. And this is about growth and learning in your business and in your life. And you got to understand what you learned from it. So have a little notebook with squares in them. And those are the questions that I ask myself when I don't get the result that I wanted out of it, whether it could be anything. So that's what I do.
And Sid, I've got a little quote that I've lived by all of my entrepreneurial life, and it is, if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got, and if we don't like what we're getting, we need to change what we're doing.
Yeah, we could it's a mic drop, friend. We could just stop the podcast right there because it is a great quote. It is a great quote. And I think it's very powerful. Absolutely, 100%.
But I love the fact that you've broken it down into a process here. Like this is, and I, I'm sure you will create that document and, put that out there for everyone because it's beautiful, to actually look at those steps and recognize. And like you say, it's not about getting engrossed in the negativity of what happened. It's pulling out that learning from that experience to empower us to move forward. Like it's fantastic.
There's the word, empower us to move forward. 100%.
Mm-hmm. So Sid, I do need to know, what do you believe are the 3 qualities of a successful entrepreneur?
3 qualities of a successful entrepreneur. Commitment to make it work. commitment to support your clients, commitment to support your family. It's commitment. You've got to be committed to doing it. Okay. The next quality of an entrepreneur, I believe a successful entrepreneur, is creativity. Always be thinking about new ideas. Doesn't mean you have to follow them all. And I don't call this shiny object, but like always be thinking about what potentially is next and how can you serve your clients more and at a higher level. So I think creativity is super important because we're all creatives. Something about us is creative. And even if you just grab sticky notes and write ideas down or have an idea journal or, put them up on the wall or whatever, but, always be thinking about creative ways to serve better and to serve at a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say the next quality of a successful entrepreneur is what I believe to be the most underdeveloped skill in the human race. That's listening. Because listening is a skill and we don't know how to listen. I will tell you, until I became a certified coach and went through my coaching certification program, I never understood the different levels of listening and the different types of listening because I was trained to listen as a sales leader, as a salesperson and a sales leader. I was trained to listen to respond. But what we really need to do is listen to understand. That's understand our customers, understand our employees, understand the situation. So listening is one of the most powerful things a skill that you can learn to do. And I believe it is a significant characteristic and trait of successful entrepreneurs.
Good point. And I just have to add in here, because we referenced Clubhouse at the beginning of the conversation, I think that's helped us a lot to actually attend those rooms and dial in, actually listen to the conversations and listen to what people are sharing. I think it gives us insight into humans as actual people, as well as their stories and the value that they have to share. So I'm grateful to Clubhouse because I think it's really helped me with my listening skills on many levels.
So Kerry, do you know why that is? It's such a great point, but do you know why that is?
I don't actually.
Because one of the elements of effective listening, and listening intuitively, as some people will call it, is presence. And because Clubhouse is an audio only application, you have to be present. And to really listen to what other people are saying, you have to be present. And if you're leading rooms like we do, we've got to be watching the screen to see people on micing and all that kind of stuff. And so it requires presence. And we've all done it. I mean, that I walk around the house sometimes I'm doing the dishes or making the bed or whatever, because that's just what I do. And you've done the same thing and you realize, we missed part of this conversation. That's because we weren't present.
Yeah.
And so Clubhouse demands presence, which absolutely leads to better listening skills. So it's a really, really great point.
Yeah, I think so as well. And definitely, and again, still evolving, still learning, still, dialing in a little bit further every time we're there. And I think, that's really good. So Sid, another question for you. What was the most unexpected idea you've had, and how did it impact your company?
So the most unexpected idea, this is also a really great question. I should know these because I created that question. So I should know these. The most unexpected idea that I created and what was the impact to the business? I'm going to actually say something that most people aren't going to think is the right answer. Okay. But I didn't create it, but I stopped. Let's put it that way. I stopped. And I may be cheating. I'm getting this weird look from my friend Kerry, like, okay, wait just a minute. But I stopped consulting. So I pivoted away. I didn't create it, but I stopped it. And the impact to the business was profound. And I mean, consulting felt heavy to me. It wasn't something I got a lot of joy out of. It was also hugely time consuming and it was super expensive, but it was also super expensive from a cost perspective. And so though it had a really big upside as it related to the actual, hey, write me the check, here's the invoice. And that had a big upside to it. But the downside was it always cost a lot. And then what we said would take 4 weeks took 6 weeks. and it just felt heavy. And then what I realized was because we're a small business and there's only a few of us, I would be getting involved in the consulting itself, and I would be sucked in for 4 weeks. And then when we turned it in, whether it was 4 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever it was, we delivered the package. I'd look behind me, Kerry, and there's no business. There's no funnel because I had been focused on delivering. And so it was a huge aha moment for me that though the financial aspect of this is good, it's not long-term sustainable. And I wasn't getting a lot of joy out of it. So by eliminating consulting and pivoting to business strategy and coaching, and now some trainings that we're working on and courses that we're working on, it actually freed me up to work on my business rather than in my business. And it gave me a lot more joy, and it gave my employees a lot more joy too. So all of a sudden we're having a lot more fun. So the impact there is fun, which what that correlates to is we were serving our clients better, and we are serving our clients better because we got rid of something that was heavy in our business.
I love that. You've got the triple win there. You really do, for yourself, for your team, and for your clients. So triple, trifecta. Yay. Love it. Sid, we need to hop into success tips. Please provide us with 3 tips from your personal experiences that will help other entrepreneurs along their journey.
Okay, this is really good. 3 tips.
You're not prepared?
No, I'm not prepared. So I'm not prepared, but this is good because I didn't want to be prepared because I didn't want to look at it. So I'm doing this on the cuff, I created the framework here and the questions here. So I should already know, but, so 3 tips. The first tip is, I would say, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right this very moment, but it is your responsibility to ensure that you move forward every day. So you're right where you're supposed to be in this very moment. Anybody listening, whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. But it's up to you to decide to move forward. It's up to you to invest in yourself and to invest in your business to move forward. So that's the first thing. Second tip that I would give is enjoy this journey. Have fun, smile, laugh. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? We all have bad days. They exist. Unfortunately, we can't just like wave our magical Kerry wand and make all the bad days go away, because we can't. But you got to find the joy in the journey. And so find the joy in the journey. Okay. So you're right where you're supposed to be. Find the joy in the journey. The next thing is be brave. Have the courage to do things that you didn't think were possible. Have the courage to step in and have conversations with people maybe that intimidate you, or have the courage to join Clubhouse and raise your hand and come up on the stage. Have the courage to pick up the phone and call that CEO and introduce yourself and tell them about your business. Have courage. Courage is so important in our personal life and our professional life. And for entrepreneurs, you got to be brave. Put that armor on. The worst thing that can happen is they can say no. And if they say no, move on. Go to the next person. So you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Embrace the courage and have joy and have fun along the journey. That's what I would say.
And I'm going to tie number 2 and number 3 together there, Sid, because I think one of the coolest things that you and I are both discovering is reels.
Oh yeah.
Because it is, we are being brave and we are having fun. So that's a double win right there with the reels on Instagram.
That is very true, because Kerry and I are friends and we hang out together a lot. Though we've never met in person, we've only met on Zoom. And I look forward to the day that I can actually go to Melbourne and meet Kerry face to face. But Kerry is a marketing bully, and she's bullying me to create a reel. So when we launched this podcast at the Amazing Entrepreneurs Club on Instagram, I did a reel and we learned how to change the music to get really cool music. And it was a lot of fun. I did have a lot of fun doing it, but it's absolutely silly. And I'm too old to be doing reels, but I'm going to do another one. So thank you, Kerry.
It's fun. It's fun. But for both of us, like I've not done a lot of reels. I've done a few, but like you said, I didn't have the right selection of music. So to be able to step into more, I guess, a creative landscape of what was going to help us do this, there's no excuses anymore. We've got no excuse anymore. It's like, oh, the music was the reason before and now that's gone. And it's like, oh, okay, better turn up all the time. But I need to practice what I preach. You know, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And I'm super glad you and I are a bit competitive on this now. I think there's a bit of a challenge in the air. So that's really
You're
cool.
way ahead of me because you've done a lot more than I have. But I did do one. So go check it out. If you're listening, go to my Instagram and, Amazing Entrepreneurs Club and check out the reel. Maybe by the time this episode launches, I'll have done a couple of more reels. Who knows? We'll see.
You will have.
I just like that moment of insight. It needs two things from Kerry. I need inspiration and I need courage.
Yep.
I got all the tools. I got the phone. I got the selfie stick and all that. I got the light. I got everything. I just need inspiration and courage. So.
Cool. Sid, I have 3 random questions for you.
Okay,
Are you ready?
This is part 3 of the power of 3, which is random questions. So, because Kerry knows me, I am a little scared of the questions.
I've tailored this to you, Sid. I'm going to be nice. I think these are really good things that we want to know about you, and to be honest, I think it's things that I don't even know. So this is going to be fun. Yep.
Let's do it.
All right. So question number 1, Sid, is who would you most like to meet?
Oh, that's easy. That is so
easy.
Yes. Well, let me put a clarifier. Dead or alive?
Either.
Okay. So I am going to choose Ernest Shackleton. And Shackleton is an explorer that lived in the 1900s. And he was from Ireland, so he is considered a British explorer. And Shackleton tried and failed multiple times to be the first person to go to Antarctica, the South Pole, to cross it, and then he died while trying to do it the 3rd time.
Oh.
But the lessons that Shackleton teaches on leadership are unbelievable. Because here's the thing about Ernest Shackleton, and I could talk about this guy for hours. He, every time he raised his hand and said, I'm going back to do it again, every person that went with him the previous time that was still alive signed up to go with him again.
Oh.
That is leadership.
And
the stories about Shackleton, just Google him. There's a documentary about him. I learned about him at an event that I went to. I heard an author, Dr. Nancy Cohan from Harvard University. I heard her speak about him. She wrote a book about him. And it's just some amazing lessons to learn from people in history. And what he did is so relevant today for leaders. And it really resonates with me as I lead my business and as I lead my team. Lessons that Shackleton taught us are just off the charts good. So I would definitely want to have a beer or, fish and chips with Ernest Shackleton.
I love that. Awesome. All right, let's keep moving. Next question. Question number 2. Sid, which animal best describes you?
So it's interesting. I met a lady at an event who she says her gift was to determine people's spirit animals.
Ooh. Just
by meeting and have a conversation. I thought that's really weird, but okay. And so she told me my spirit animal was a turtle. And I'm like, she explained it. I don't remember what she said, but she told me it was a turtle, which I thought was quite interesting. And I'm fascinated by all that kind of conversation. But if I had to pick an animal, I'm going to actually say a jackrabbit because I like to go fast. And sometimes I go too fast. And then I stop and go, oh, shoot, the tortoise is winning the race. I went too fast. And this is a lesson for all entrepreneurs. We need to slow down in order to speed up. And I will raise my hand and say, I am one of the guilty ones of going too fast and not having a strategy or not really thinking through what it is I want to do. And I just barrel through it too fast. So you remember, Kerry, a couple of minutes ago, I said, we could have an entire episode about all the lessons I learned from all the things I tried that didn't work out. Jackrabbit. So I'm going to say a jackrabbit.
Love it. Love it. And I can picture that, by the way, like literally picture that. All right, Sid, the last question is, what's your favorite thing to tune into in the car?
Ooh, so I'm a lover of country music. So I love country music. I also love 80s music because I grew up in the 80s. But my favorite thing to tune into the car is actually podcast
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a podcast junkie. In addition to being a podcaster and having two podcasts, because I have another podcast, I love listening to them. And the car is such a great place to do it. So when I go and drive to see my daughter, I have a couple, like 3.5 hours in the car, and my wife is usually sleeping, and so I'm listening to podcasts, and I learn so much. The problem is that I can't take notes, so I have to like save it and then come back and listen to it again so I can take notes. But my favorite thing to listen to in the car is podcast because it's a great way to I think learn, and they're engaging. Most of the ones I like to listen to are just like this; they're interview based.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you the thing that I'd least like listening to in the car is kind of the opposite is books.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause they put me to sleep in the car. I don't know why. It just makes me so tired in the car. Now I can sit here and listen to a book and read at the same time because I actually do that. I listen and read to books at the same time. And because I read about 13 books a year
Mm-hmm.
and listening, just I enjoy it a lot. But listening while driving, it's very tiresome.
Mm.
So I listen to podcasts. My favorite thing to do in the car is listen to podcasts.
I think that's a good move, Sid, because I agree with you. The audiobooks in the car, as soon as that sun hits the windscreen and, you're kind of like drifting away a little. No, danger, danger, definitely. Stick to the podcasts.
Because you just learn so much, and they're very, very entertaining.
They are. They really are. Creative ones are fantastic, and they're getting more and more creative as we speak. I think that's what's making it so good for the car as well. Is that the artistic podcaster is really coming forth these days. So yeah, appreciate that myself as well. So Sid, we're up to part 3, which is the wrap up.
Here we are at the end of the first episode. For those of you listening, wow, I really appreciate you hanging out with me today and with Kerry. Kerry, thank you so much for coming in and being the guest host today and interviewing me and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about my story with the people that are joining and listening in today. And I will say that throughout this season and as we launch episodes and as I'm interviewing people, you're going to get to hear more of my story. You'll get to learn more about me. And I would love the opportunity to get to know each and every person listening here. So if we're not connected, please come connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow us on Instagram because we're doing some fun stuff on Instagram. If you are on Clubhouse, come hang out with us on Clubhouse. But definitely, if there's one action I would like for you to take would be to go over to the website at amazingentrepreneurs.club and connect with us there and join our community there so that we can communicate with you and we can share all the amazing things we're doing, like podcasts like this, because we got a lot of fun stuff planned. So Kerry, as I now wrap up my show of me being, which sounds a little bit weird, I appreciate you being here today and taking time early in the morning in your part of the world. So if our community would like to get to know you a little bit better and connect with you, what is the best place for them to do that?
Oh, thank you, Sid. Guys, it's really simple. Just look up kerryzarb.com for my website or Kerry Zarb on all the social channels. Super easy, kept it simple. Simple is good. Love it.
And we'll make sure that the link to Kerry's website is dropped into the show notes. But for clarity, I want to make sure that it's KerryZarb.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to say, if you're a podcaster listening to this or a wannabe podcaster listening to this or an aspiring podcaster, and you need help with marketing and you need marketing demystified, Kerry is the person that you need to go to. So be sure you go and check out all that she's doing in the world of podcast marketing. Hey, friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Sid. It's been great to be here. I feel honoured to be the special guest host of the first episode officially for Amazing Entrepreneurs, and I'm super excited to watch this journey unfold. I'm so excited for you, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate you being part of the journey, friend. I love you very much. It's been an honor. And thanks to everyone listening today, and we'll see you next week. Take care.